Moving on to Chapter 2, Excel, we're going to be working with formulas, functions, and formatting. In our last chapter, you learned how to enter data, sum values, format a worksheet to make it easier to read, and draw a chart. This chapter continues to illustrate those topics and then present a few new ones. The new topics covered in this chapter include using formulas and functions, and applying a theme, adding borders, formatting numbers and text, using conditional formatting, etc. Let's see. We are going to make a worksheet for a company called Olivia's Art Supply. The owners currently create a salary report by hand where they keep track of employee payroll data. But it's getting too hard for them, so they have asked us to create an Excel sheet to make their process easier. So the first thing that you will do is open up a blank workbook, and we're going to enter our titles and our subtitle. So A1, and our title is Olivia's Art Supply. Enter, and our subtitle is Salary Report. Let's see, enter to A3, and we are going to enter our column titles. And our column titles will be Employee, tab over, email address, tab over, dependents, tab over, hours worked. And when they're a long title, we want to put the words on top of each other, and how you do that is hours and then Alt Enter. So hold down your Alt key and your Enter key, and then we can type the word on the bottom. So worked. See how that did that? So let's go back and redo that for email address. Email, Alt Enter, address, and then I'm going to tab back over. That way it just saves some space. Then we need hourly pay rate, and we're going to do hourly, Alt Enter, pay rate, tab over, gross pay, federal tax, state tax, tax percentage, and I'm just going to use the percent sign, net pay, and hire date. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead and enter our employee names and all of their information. So we'll start with our first employee, and we're going to type their last name first with a comma and then their first name. So Bennett, comma, Joanne, and then tab over. And right now, everything's overlapping. If you want to start making your columns wider, you can double click like you learned in last chapter. We're going to skip email address for now. Dependents, she has 2 dependents. That's usually how many children do you have living in your household. Hours worked, so she worked 64.25, and I'm going to tab over. She gets paid $19.75 an hour, and then I'm going to tab over to her hire date, which was 4/5/12. And I'll press enter, and we'll go back down to the next employee. I'm going to press pause. I'm going to type it all in, and then you can do it on your own. There is all of our employee data that we just typed in. So if you want to pause this and get it filled in, go ahead. And then next thing we're going to talk about is Flash Fill. Flash Fill is an Excel feature that looks for patterns in the data and automatically fills or formats the data in the remaining cells. Basically, Flash Fill is a feature that's convenient and time-saving because especially if you're entering a lot of data manually, it picks up patterns and helps you out along the way. Sometimes it's not right and you just delete it and enter it yourself, but sometimes it is and it's very nice to use it. And right now we're going to show you how to use that by entering their email address. So go ahead and go to cell B4 and we're going to enter email addresses. Basically, it's their first initial last name at email.com. So here it would be jbennett@email.com, and then press the down arrow and do mfred@email.com. Again, press the down arrow. And now let's see if Excel will pick up on that pattern and fill the rest for us. And how you do that is click the Data tab up here, and then there's a Flash Fill button. So find that, and it did what I thought it was going to do. So I'm going to make my column bigger, and it's right on all the employees, but it went up here and did our title, which we don't need, so I'm just going to delete those two. And my computer's weird. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's finish entering the row titles. So under our last employee, I'm going to write total, and under it, highest, lowest, and average. And I'm just pressing the enter key to go down. Okay. One thing we learned last chapter was sheet tabs and how to rename them and color them. So double click sheet 1 and let's name it salary report. Press enter. If you right click it, we can tab color it. Let's go green. Okay. So next part we're going to do is enter some formulas, and we're going to enter our formulas for our gross pay, federal tax, state tax, tax percentage, and net pay. And this is all for accounting purposes for when your employees file their taxes and your company files their taxes. The first one's pretty easy, gross pay. Gross pay is your hours worked times your pay rate. So here we have hours worked and we have our pay rate. So to enter that formula, what you would do is you would press the equal sign and you equal hours worked. So that's cell D4 times, put your times key in there. It's the little star on your ThinkPad note key on the right side of your keyboard. And then times hourly pay rate, which is E4. So once you have equals D4 times E4, you can press tab. Now we're going to calculate our federal tax rate, and that formula comes from the government, so you just take their formula and you plug in your numbers. So our federal tax rate equals, and it's 22%, so we write that as 0.22 times, and then in parentheses, open parentheses, we're going to take our gross pay minus our dependents times the number they give us is 24.32, and then close parentheses. So there's a lot of math involved here, but luckily you enter the formula and then Excel finds your answer. So as you can see, we're typing in here, but if you look up here, that's exactly what we typed also. And then I'm going to press my tab key over, and it formulated my federal tax number. Now I need my state tax number. State tax is a little bit more simple than our federal tax. It is just our gross pay, so equals our gross pay times 4%. And you type in 4% as 0.04 and tab over. Okay, now our tax percentage. This is how you find your tax percentage. You're going to do equals, and then we're going to go parentheses, our federal tax plus our state tax, close parentheses, divided by our gross pay. I'm going to tab over, and it figured out my tax percentage. And now my net pay. So what your net pay is, it's finding out what your check's going to actually be. So it takes your gross pay and then it takes out all your taxes, and that's your net pay. So equals gross pay minus parentheses our federal tax and our state tax. So federal tax plus state tax, close your parentheses, so equals F4 minus G4 plus H4, tab over, and my check started out as $1,068, and what I'm really going to get paid is $949. Okay, so you can see our decimals are kind of long, so to fix our decimals to 2 decimal points, you can highlight our whole area, go to your home tab, and then see this is decreased decimals, this is increased decimals, this is decreased decimals. So let's decrease it and increase it. We want to get it to where it's 2 numbers after our decimal. And then when you're done, you can click outside. So instead of entering those formulas over and over again for all your employees, you can just copy and fill the rest in. And you did a little bit of that last chapter. So we're going to highlight our formulas, and then remember our fill button right here. We're going to drag it down. And there we go. Next thing to do is find our totals. We're going to find our totals for column D, the total amount of hours worked for our employees. So click on D13. Remember auto sum, enter, there we go. Now we want to find our formulas for F13 through H13. So here's F13 and we want to go through H13. Auto sum, and boom. And next we want to find our total for net pay. Enter. And our tax percentage, we just want to carry that same formula down. So I'm going to highlight the number before, which would be I-12. I'm going to drag it down. And I'll copy that percentage formula down to our total tab. Next thing we're going to do is find our highest number in our range. Excel includes a function called the max function that displays the highest value in a range. So what we want to do first is find the highest dependent number. So click on C14. And we've been entering formulas with our keyboard. I'll show you another way to enter formulas. So we could write equals max and then our parentheses formula, but instead we can go up here to fx, which is the insert function button, and we can find the function we need, which is max. You press OK. And then it's asking if we want D4 through D13, which we do not, because we do not want that total number in there. So what we do is we change it. And actually, I had it on the wrong one, sorry. We want it on dependent. So try that again. C4 through C13. We do not want 13 in there, so let's change that to 12. And there it will calculate only our employees' dependents. Press OK. The highest number of dependents was 3. And then let's go to C15. And we'll do the same thing, but now we're finding our minimum function. The min function, min, determines the lowest number in a range. So again, I'm going to go to fx. If it's not on the list, you can type it in and find it. Click OK. And now it's asking if we want C14, but we want the range of C4 to C12. So let's C4. And what it does is use a colon there, and C12. So we're asking for the range of our dependents from C4 to C12. Press OK. And our lowest number was 0. You know, just by looking at that, you could tell 0 was the lowest and 3 was the highest. But imagine having hundreds of employees or thousands of employees, and you can't just look at a list and see a high number and a low number. So that's where a formula would come in handy. Okay, next we have average. So we want to find the average dependent. And again, you could use this button, but I want to show you a different way to enter a formula. By typing up here in our bar, we would type equals average, and then you would open parentheses, and then we're going to drag our range that we're looking at, and then I'm going to close parentheses, and then I'm going to press enter. And the average was 1.22222. So again, we can copy this across instead of doing it over and over again. So we can copy our highest, lowest, and our average. So if you highlight the 3, drag all the way over to net pay. And then go ahead and delete the average tax percentage, because that is an invalid average. So we just put in our data, formulas, and functions. So the next thing we want to do is format our worksheet to improve the appearance. So the first thing we want to do is change our workbook theme. By doing that, you need to click the page layout and click the themes button. And we are going to choose the theme Ion. And then we are going to format our worksheet titles just like we did in last chapter. So select A1 through K1, merge and center. And do the same thing for A2 through K2. And then select 1 and 2, and we're going to give it a title style. And then we want to decrease salary report because it's the subtitle, which needs to be a little bit smaller than the main title. So let's go ahead and decrease the font size from 18 to 16. And then let's give it a background color and apply a box border so that the worksheet title and subtitle stands out. So select A1 through A2. And then we're going to go to our paint bucket. And we're going to choose Blue Gray Accent 5, which should be column 9, row 3. And then let's go to our borders. And we're going to give it a thick outside border. Next, we're going to apply a cell style to the column headings and format the total rows. So go ahead and select A3 through K3. And we're going to give it a heading 3 style. And then let's go ahead and center that row. And then we're going to apply the total cell style to A13 through K13. And let's go ahead and bold A14 through A16. You may want to change the way your date is formatted to suit your needs better, so I'm going to show you how to do that. Select all of your dates, go up here to your number format button. You may have to click date on the left side, and here you can scroll and you can pick out of all these options how you want your date to look. I'm going to pick this way and press OK. And then let's go ahead and center our dates. Next thing we want to do is apply the accounting number format and the comma style format like we showed you in last chapter. So remember, the first row always gets the accounting format. And so it'll start here at hourly pay rate and go through state tax, and then you can hold your control key button down and select net pay, and then choose accounting. You got to do it that way because your tax percentage and your hire date and your hours worked will not have a number assigned by it. And then you want to do the same thing for your total. So I'm going to highlight those numbers, hold down my control key, select net pay, and change it to accounting. And then we want all the other numbers to have commas. Select E5 through H12. And give it the comma style. And do the same thing for J5 through J12. Select the range D4 through D16. And also apply the comma style. Next thing we're going to do is apply a currency style format with a floating dollar sign using the Format Cells dialog box. We want to do this because the currency format places dollar signs immediately to the left of the number and displays a 0 for cells that have a value of 0. So go ahead and select E14 through H16. Hold down your control key and select J14 through J16. And go up here to our format number box and choose currency and pick the third style. The next step is to format the text percentage in column I because Excel currently displays the number as decimal fractions when they need to appear as percentages. So select I4 through I15 and go up and click the percent style. And then let's increase the decimal 2 times. Now let's talk a little bit about conditional formatting. Conditional formatting offers you the ability to automatically change how a cell appears by the font, font color, background fill, or other options based on the value in the cell. So what we're going to do is we want to emphasize the values greater than 72 in column D, hours worked. So basically the boss wants to know who worked over 72 hours. And imagine you have a list of 1,000 employees, so it's kind of hard to go through and look who worked more than 72. So what you do is you apply conditional formatting so that Excel automatically highlights those employees who've worked over 72 hours. So go ahead and select D4 through D12. Click your conditional formatting button, and we want to make a new rule. So go ahead and click Format Only Cells That Contain, and we want a cell value that's greater than 72. And then you hit OK, and we're going to format it. We want our font to be white, and we want our fill to be blue. So pick the blue color in column 9, row 1. And press OK, and press OK. And then when you click off, you'll see the hours worked over 72 are highlighted in blue. The last thing we're going to do is change our column widths and our row heights. So I'm going to show you a few ways to do that. The first thing you want to do is drag through column A, B, and C. Put your crosshair on the other side of C and double click. Select column D, E, and I. So you'll have to hold your control key down. So D, E, and I. And then we want to drag it until our width is at 7.5. And it should change all 3 columns at the same time. Let's adjust our row heights. So point to the boundary below row heading 3. And we want to drag until we're at 48. And then point to under row 14, and we want to drag until 27. And just get to as close as you can possibly. Get as close as you can. I know it's a little hard. And the very last thing you need to do is check your spelling. So Review tab, Spelling, and you can go through and make sure everything is the way you want it to.